This lecture will serve as an introduction to the field of economic demography, which will be our area of inquiry for a few lectures. Economic demography, which is also called population economics, is the application of economic tools to study human population. Economic demographers are interested in such key variables as the total population in a place and a time, how population grows, births, which we also call fertility, mortality or deaths, and also the structure of families. Without maybe even realizing it, you've heard probably many claims that connect economics and population. A really common sort of dinner table topic you'll often hear is that if our population on this earth keeps growing, humanity is no longer going to be able to feed itself. That's an economic demography question, which we're going to explore in much more detail. You may also hear that having a large family is a sure path to misery. The counterpoint to this, of course, is that China's one-child policy may have been critical for its economic success. That's the subject of a lot of economics research these days, actually. I don't think we have one definite answer to that question. You'll also hear that small families allow more resources to be devoted to the individual children, which could also lead to more economic growth through more human capital investment in those children. And finally, a claim that you often hear, which sort of follows from these above, is that we should probably encourage poor families to have fewer children. And I can get where this claim is coming from, although to be quite honest, I think this starts to sound a little bit eugenic, but we'll table that for the moment. Economic demography really starts with a set of giant questions. So, like, the biggest questions in economic demography are, how does the economy affect population quantities like family size, fertility, and mortality? And then vice versa, how does family size, fertility, mortality, etc. affect the overall economy? If we zoom into our current period of inquiry, into Britain in our period of study, we can think about the following phenomenon. Actually, as it turns out, Britain experienced massive population growth, in particular in the 18th century. So we can ask why this happened and what effect this big change may have had. To table set for this discussion, I want to introduce to us a few crucial terms and quantities, starting with the crude birth rate, which is the number of births in a year per 1,000 people in a certain geographic area. We can also construct a crude death rate, which is the number of deaths in a year per 1,000 people in that geographic area. And finally, the crude marriage rate, which is the number of marriages in a year per 1,000 people, similarly in some geographic area. You may have also seen in the past a quantity that's expressed as E with a subscript. This would mean the life expectancy a person has given that person has already lived to the age denoted by the subscript. So for example, E sub 0 is a person's life expectancy when they're born, where E sub 5 is their life expectancy given they've already lived to age 5. And as a general rule, E5 is going to be greater than E0 because if you've already lived to age 5, you're going to make it a lot longer. There's a lot of risk in those first years of life. Those are dangerous years for any person. In the next lecture, we're going to explore some of the fundamental principles of population economics, which were made up by Thomas Malthus, who was a particularly pessimistic, worried guy. So we're gonna get inside his head for a little while.